Welcome to a regular Brevard County Commission meeting on January 12th. I need to make sure Commissioner Smith is on the line with us. Do we have Commissioner Smith? Well, hopefully we'll get him in the next few minutes. We have our first invocation we're going to do this evening. We have Mr. Roger Alexander. Yes? Are you here, sir? Oh, there you are. Well, welcome, and if you would like to pray for us, we'd certainly appreciate it this evening. Okay.
Most gracious Lord, I ask your abundant blessings upon all gathered here today. We thank you for life. We thank you for this day. We ask you to provide the knowledge and the spiritual wisdom we all need to fulfill the individual and group callings you brought us to. Thank you for the freedom to publicly embrace you through your gracious and forgiving nature. Lord, you tell us we are to love others as we love ourselves, to promote peace and order and justice. In that light, I pray for our commissioners. I ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, discernment for the welfare and the true needs of our people, a thirst for justice and righteousness in all issues that they encounter, the ability to work in harmony even when there's an honest disagreement. And Lord, I ask for your personal peace in their lives and exceptional joys in their families. And I pray that for today's agenda, that the people speak today will have the insight into what you would want them to say and what would please you. And what they say will benefit all those who live, work, and play within Brevard County. And I pray this in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we haven't really discussed this yet. For a matter of consistency, I thought the invocation, we should do 3 minutes moving forward as well, just so we don't lose the meeting, perhaps, if we... Is that good? Ms. Bentley, will that do?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We would have Commissioner Smith here to do the pledge, but Vice Chair Isnardi, would you do the...
You please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And I need to call this meeting to order. We do have a forum. Commissioner Smith, are you with us yet, sir? Okay, can he hear us? All right. We are needing to approve the minutes for August 25th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lober, second.
Second.
By Commissioner Zonka. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. All right, we're going to move into, Commissioners, I'm sorry, J3 is a little bit time sensitive. He has to have that in tonight. So if, with your consideration, I'd like to go ahead and move into item J3.
Madam Commissioner, I'd like to let you know that I'm on board now.
Go ahead and move to approve, making sure that we also do include the cities in the allocation.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zonka. And do you want to go ahead and introduce it so everybody knows what we're doing, then we'll vote?
Yes, Commissioner, and I apologize for doing this as an add-on. The documents from Treasury only got to us on the 6th of January, and they're due back at 11:59 tonight. So this is an additional allocation of funds for rental assistance. These funds came out of the latest stimulus that was signed into law by President Trump on the 27th of December. It allocated $25 billion to rental assistance. Estimate that Brevard is going to receive somewhere around $18 million. That is not the Treasury's estimate. That's National Association of Counties estimates. They're pretty spot on. But part of the I believe the reason we haven't heard from Treasury yet is because agencies or communities, governments that don't meet the deadline for receipt of the document tonight, accepting the terms, will have their funds redistributed to the agencies that do. So it could be a different dollar amount. The dollars themselves are very specific this time around, unlike the CARES Act. So we will have a new application, a new policy, which I'm hoping to bring back to you on the 26th of January. The idea is, because this is such a large amount of money, to reach out, as Commissioner Lober indicated. We have the 4 major cities that currently do income verification as part of their federal programs. So we'll be reaching out to them. That's why one of the requested action items was to allow the county manager to sign interlocal agreements. That's to cover them. We have several non-for-profits in the community that do income verification. So we'll be doing an invitation to bid to try and get them on board, as well as we already have an agency under contract that will be able to piggyback that they do income verification also. So we'll move forward with all those different aspects. Some of the other differences is in the income limitations. The previous program was 140% of area median income. That was a board direction. The law itself this time maxes it out at 80% of area median income. Another difference is it allows landlords to apply on behalf of their tenants. They do have to have the tenant sign off. So as part of this, as we market it, we'll also be marketing to the different landlord and rental associations. I think that's, if there are any questions.
No, sir. Thank you so much. I don't see any lights from the commissioner. Commissioner Smith, I know I do have you now, sir. We have a motion and a second on the floor. And no lights, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. We'll move back to the consent agenda. Commissioners, would you like anything pulled for discussion?
Move to approve.
Okay, I have a card on a couple of them. If you're good with it, I'd like to just let him speak, and then we'll go ahead and vote on it.
Sure.
Is that all right? Oh, I cannot say your name. Peter Carnicel? I hear it all the time. I've just never had to say it. Yes, sir. And you're wanting to address item F1 and F2, correct, sir?
Yes, but basically, I'm not against it, I just want some clarification. The way I read it, basically, F1, which is the West Calco and Silver FEMA grants for acquisition of the flood properties, the federal funds would add up on the two of them to a little over $3 million, and the state funds would be a little over $1 million. And as far as I can tell by reading the details, there's no Brevard County input to that at all. I just wanted to verify that.
I think this will be a Virginia one, but I do know in the briefing that she said that some of these were West Cocoa with matching funds as far as the property that's being obtained. Frank, do you have any information on this? Oh, yay. Good time to see you, sir. Are you wanting to answer this question now, sir, or yeah?
Answer the question, yes. The funds that are referred to in this one are federal funds for acquisition of flood-prone properties, and essentially no match is required as long as we follow all the federal rules associated with the acquisition process. There's actually two areas that are involved. One is at the Silver Pines subdivision in, I'll call it West Rockledge, and the other is in the West Cocoa area in the Stratford Drive area, which we've had a lot of flooding. Both locations we've had quite a bit of flooding in.
Okay, so that means my assumption that the matching money is going to come from the state is correct? Okay.
Yes.
The other question basically was on F2, and it's a similar question. That one goes, the grant from State Fish and Wildlife, which is a much smaller grant, okay, is state funds of $54,000, and the paperwork, when you get into the details, indicates a $6,000 donation, but it doesn't indicate where the donation is coming from.
Commissioners, the match is coming from donations from local sports fishing organizations.
Okay.
Commissioner
And
Loeb.
that was basically my questions.
Okay, Mr. Carnso, anytime you have this, if you want to call me at my office, I will get all this before the meeting for you, so you have all the data you'd like to have.
All right, so
Okay.
basically, you can tell by the detailed question, I do read
Yes,
the details
you
of
can
the...
call us. I'd be glad to help you with some of this research before, and be glad to help
Okay.
you with that. That way it gives it staff time to get the right answers, too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, I have a correction on that item on F1. There will be some matching funds will be coming out of stormwater fees for that district, for the area involved. 25%
For F1?
for F1, that's correct. I'm sorry.
Is that 25% of the total? Does that mean that we're going to be doing half of the state?
No, it's going to be 25% of the actual expenditures. Historically, on these situations, a lot of homeowners do not agree to the sale, and or they want more than the appraised value, and so if that's the case, then there won't be a transaction. And so the maximum amount is what we've noted here, but it won't be half the state, no, sir.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Commissioner Lober, did you want to shine something on this for us?
Just a couple, one real quick on F1 and one real quick on F2. On F1, I know from having spoken with Natural Resources that in the very recent past, we did in fact have one property, and I don't know if it was included or already pulled out of that, where they were not amenable to the price that was suggested to them. So it may in fact be less than that. I just don't know if that was reflected in the current agenda item. And on F2, the other thing I'd point out, just as an addendum to what was said by staff, there are a couple other organizations that are contributing into that grant funding. I know FIT and I believe UCF were also involved. They were all relatively low dollar values, I think maybe $2,000 or $3,000 apiece, but it was more than just the sport fishing group.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
We are going into public comments. Loretta Dozer. Everybody's looking at me like I forgot something, did I? Oh, we did not approve the agenda.
Motion still stands.
Motion by Commissioner Loper, do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Tobiah. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passes 4-0. Commissioner Smith, you there with us?
I am indeed.
Okay, we have an aye from you as well, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Dozer?
No, I don't want to say aye too, I hope because from my perspective, listening to my voice in your chambers, it's awfully loud.
We agree with you, sir. Ms. Dozer?
Good evening to the commissioners. Madam Chair, thank you. Vice Chair, Ms. Zonka, God bless you. And Mr. Tobiah, Commissioner Tobiah, Commissioner Lober, and Commissioner Smith, hello, sir. My name is Loretta Dozier. I am a 30-year resident of Palm Bay, Florida. I'm also the CEO and founder of a local nonprofit, Dove, D-O-V-E Bible Club. And I am here just to say thank you. Thank you to the commissioners. On December 22nd, you all approved the selection of invocation speakers. And I'm so glad I was here tonight to hear the first one. So I'm just here on behalf of Dove Bible Club and our 50-plus volunteers and representing over 500 families. I'm here, we're here to applaud you all on all that you did and for approving that selection process. Thank you for your time and your sacrifice and your service. I did receive one of the letters and I saw all of the meetings that you all have to attend, sometimes 2, 3, and 4 meetings a month. So thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
We'll leave you with this blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jacob Gelman? After Mr. Gelman, we'll have Krishna Tiwati. Oh, thank you.
First of all, thank you for having me here today. I just want to say the main question that comes to mind when thinking why it's such a fight to pass an ordinance banning discrimination is why. Why there is any fight in advocating for an ordinance simply banning discrimination. Simply passing an ordinance enumerating race, sexual preference, ability, gender, religion, or sex as protected classes for any caring person, any caring government should be no fight. Should seek no headlines, should simply be a routine process to correct a gap in policy. Instead, it seemed there was a reason after reason to wait. A court hearing, a case on an HRO outside of Brevard Circuit, a bill in the State House which has been there for years with little to no hope of passing, a Supreme Court case. I was told there was interest, but there was this or that case pending. They have all passed. So now I'm here asking again that Brevard recognize the necessity to make clear a stance against discrimination in this county. I should not have to convince anyone why discrimination shouldn't be allowed in any civil society. I shouldn't have to lay out theoretical, pragmatic, or emotional arguments convincing any lawmaker of their constituents' humanity. It should just be known. The need for protection from abuse is known in my bones. Yes, as a queer person, I have personally experienced hatred based on who I am. But as a Jewish person, my history is one of societal and governmental abuse. My family died in the pogroms of the USSR. My grandfather was denied employment. My great-grandparents' homes in Eastern Europe were burned to the ground. Why? Because the government did not protect them from abuse, did not recognize their humanity. In spite of this, there is no recognition in Brevard that Jewish people or any minority class are free from discrimination. No recognition of any protected classes. There is no HRO in Brevard County. This is not political, not left or right, not blue or red, and not Republican or Democrat. This is merely a veneration of human rights. To paint it as anything else, to postpone it anymore, is to play political games with the humanity of the citizens of Brevard. For that reason, an HRO in Brevard County is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tiwata? And Miss Autumn Claiborne, you'll be next, ma'am.
Thank you for your time. We are here to support an HRO,
If
and I
you
would
would
just
say your name for the record, because I missed
Krishna
yours.
Tawadia.
Thank you, dear.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to affirm that all of our civil rights are equal. Every single identity is protected by the Civil Rights Act and by the 14th Amendment. Even Florida's own Civil Rights Act of 1992 protects against, quote, discrimination because of race, color, religion, sex, pregnancy, national origin, age, handicap, or marital status, and thereby to protect their interest and personal dignity, end quote. This request for human rights should not be seen as causing division. Human rights do not mean rights for white people, for straight people, or for non-disabled people. I have faith in the decency and dignity of Brevard County's government, and I've seen this time and time again. I've seen this, for example, from attending a Brevard Leader Summit back in September, which Commissioner Tobiah was also at. As he can attest, the civil rights leaders there were able to have civil discussion with the sheriff's deputies who were also present, and all the parties involved showed nothing but care and concern for each other's grievances. I know for a fact that this government cares about its people, but now is the time to show it. What does cause division is when we allow discrimination in our county. We do not get to pick and choose which of the identities in the Civil Rights Act we protect. We must protect all of them, and an HRO will affirm that Brevard County is willing to do this. We do not get to say everything is okay when we allow the murders of Gregory Edwards, Sincere Pierce, and Angelo Crooms. This HRO is necessary to prove that Brevard County condemns racism. Right now, our country is at a turning point and experiencing disorder and disunion comparable to before the Civil War. The riot at the Capitol on the 6th showed that people of different colors are treated differently. When BLM protesters were fighting for their rights to exist, the Capitol was ready for the event. However, when radical white supremacists, and that's what they were, radicals, stormed the Capitol and the government had warning that it was going to happen, it still took 4 hours for them to fix it. And I think it is worth noting that the rioters at the Capitol were not regular people. I do not stand here trying to disparage everyone on the right because of the actions of a few radicals. Some of my best friends are on the right, but we have to recognize that the two groups were treated differently. The same way I do not judge my fellow Brevard citizens based on the actions at the Capitol, we must not discriminate against groups in Brevard County because of the actions of a couple radicals or even because we refuse to understand them. This country has dealt with the disorder before, but right now, as Brevard County, we must take a symbolic move to show that we are willing to fight discrimination, because we must show that where the federal government has failed, where the country has seen disunion, we can prevail and that we can win. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Autumn Claiborne?
Thank you for your time. I'm here to speak on the fact that there is no relationship between the sheriff or police department and low-income areas in Brevard County. We have yet again an apology from our sheriff on behalf of the deputy who murdered 2 young boys. He has even said some alarming things to a Brevard County member who was sharing her concerns of the incident, stating, "Go ahead and share what you like. People like me could care less what you think. Go on now, little fellow, and stop thinking you matter." Your sheriff told a member of the community he is supposed to protect, "Stop thinking you matter." I'm not here to keep complaining about this and how they continue to police the low-income areas way more, also harass people in those areas, because that is something we all know is going on. I'm here because it's time to change those things. Let's create the relationships in low-income areas. Our only relationship should not be because we're continuously harassed by certain sheriffs or cops. To only have bad interactions with someone will lead to harassment, because that's all you see them as. It's time to look into who you are policing outside of your home in the high-income areas, where your neighbors are also seeing us as a threat because they're hearing the things you see, not knowing we are more than the bad situations you continue to look for in those people. Let's have a meeting with the community leaders in the low-income areas to see how we can create programs where we can build relationship. Both sides have to want better so we can create better in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to close public comments. That was our last card. I'm going to move into public hearings. We have item H1. Ms. Kathy, I'm guessing this is you, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve as she's introducing it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zonka. And do you want to go ahead and say what it is, just so people know what we're voting on, ma'am?
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is a revision to the Arts and Public Places Committee, and what it does is it changes the membership from 10 members to 9 members, and the length of the term from 1 year to 2 years, and this is consistent with other boards that the county has.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to move into unfinished business. Item 1.
I don't know if you have any cards on this item, if you wanted to take a public comment.
I do, sir. So do you want to introduce it first, and I'll call cards, or?
Yes, ma'am. The item that you have in front of you is seeking direction regarding the environmental resource permit on the US 192 site, and presents a series of options. The first option is to proceed with the US 192 site with some variables as far as the height is concerned. The second option is to take it to the Cocoa landfill and expand on our transportation and other items relating to it. And the third option is whatever the board directs us to do.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and call Mr. Jack Kirschenbaum.
Good evening. My name is Jack Kirschenbaum, and I represent Florida Recyclers, and it is always a pleasure to appear before you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know my time is short, but I'm asking that no decision be made tonight on this issue that forecloses the county's ability to purchase the Florida Recycler site. and this is why. This is a huge decision, and the citizens and the taxpayers are entitled to have it fully vetted and fully understood. We've been waiting, Florida Recyclers, has been waiting, as have you, since October of 2019 for the second appraisal, which the county received in October, which we didn't see until Monday, and an environmental report, which was ordered in October of 2019, which we also didn't see. We learned of this meeting when Mr. Rodriguez was kind enough to inform me of it yesterday morning. Because of the short notice, my appraisers, my experts can't be here this evening. These are huge decisions that have been 20 years in the making. And we understand that you have a great staff and you are compelled to rely on your experts and your staff. But in this instance, we believe the report that you received that's dated January 6th is incomplete and inaccurate and presents numbers to you that are not accurate. 2 examples. The mulch issue adds $2 million plus to this purchase. We have always said the mulch would be removed unless the county wanted it for land cover at the Sarno land site. Second, the consent order. There is a consent order. A draft was referred to of March 2020, but that consent order with the FDEP is concluded. It has literally no financial impact. It does not require the building of a perimeter road because it's already there. And this added $700,000 to the proposed future expenses of this site. The closure costs include in the report several $million that would not be necessary because they're already in escrow at the Sarno site. When it is closed, that can be transferred over. And so we believe there are very serious omissions and very serious overestimates that are in the report, and we ask for a workshop session where our experts can appear and talk about these issues with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Commissioner Lober, is that a new light, sir?
It is, yes, ma'am. I just want to make sure, Mr. Kirschenbaum, if I may ask him a couple questions.
Oh, certainly, if you don't mind, sir.
And I want to make sure I'm on the same page. I know we've met in person, we've spoken on the phone several times over at least a year on this item. We've emailed a little bit on this. I want to make sure I understand what it is that you're requesting. I don't necessarily believe that our pursuing option 1, namely constructing and permitting the 192 landfill, is necessarily prohibitive of us going and purchasing your client's property if that's something that the county determines is in its interest. Is your issue, I guess, with us taking a particular action that would exclude that possibility, or is your issue with us actually moving forward with 192? Because there is a little bit of a difference there.
My client's concern is that a decision be made on the report you have that causes it to cause you tonight or later to no longer pursue what we think is a good decision, that is acquiring the Sarno site from Florida Recyclers. We don't want any decision made tonight that eliminates our ability to negotiate, understand what's best for the county and the taxpayers. That's our concern. We're not trying to prevent you from taking any actions you need to take to preserve your options. We just don't want to be excluded from the possibility of what we believe is a great option for the county.
I appreciate it, sir. Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, I have just a couple more lights still.
Sure,
Do you want to
I
do it now, or do you?
I can do it now, or we can do it later, whatever you'd like.
Okay, Commissioner Zonka?
I didn't realize Commissioner Lober pressed the light while Mr. Kirschenbaum was talking, I pressed my light to see if we could give him more time at the
I'm
mic.
sorry. Do you want
Only
us to give him
because,
some more time? We can.
well, the reason being is this is such a big issue. There is so much to unpack. I know we just got this memo, and I know whether or not you should be watching our agenda to see if this is on there, I guess that's an argument for another time, but I understand where you're coming from, how you don't, like you said, want to be excluded, but, I got the report late this afternoon, your response to our report, and I'm curious, if I would, at the pleasure of the chairwoman, if it's okay, allow you to expand on some of what issues you have with our report. Or I should say with the county's report, not my report. Is that okay?
Oh, yes,
Give him
ma'am.
5 minutes? Is that?
I really don't need 5 minutes.
Okay.
You have the report. I will go through just some of the highlights very, very quickly. Most importantly, of course, the appraisals. We have to talk about the appraisal. We had a high appraisal. You ordered an appraisal that turned out to be in the middle, and then a second appraisal that is the low appraisal. Your two appraisals do not consider the variance that is in the works at the City of Melbourne that allows the height of the Sarno landfill, our landfill, to be raised. The county sought a similar variance for its landfill, obtained it, and we are quite confident that we will acquire that variance unless the county objects to it for some reason. I can't imagine why you would, but that changes the dynamic and assumptions of the two appraisals that you've received. And so they would certainly be increased if the height is something that is increased to 104 feet. Second, once that occurs, the expenses of the perceived cost of a cubic yard there drop drastically from the $11 that is estimated, which changes the length of time in which to recoup whatever expense that there is in modifying the site. The consent order that added several $1 million with a perimeter road and others, that consent order is with the FDEP is concluded now. There's literally no expense to Florida recyclers. It expires in a year, and it doesn't require any additional infrastructure. The third one that I had that I thought was the most important were the environmental concerns. The environmental report is complete, although there were some trace elements of one chemical that we're all very concerned with. There are no standards for it. It doesn't exceed any standards, and the potential that such standards may be brought in later really can't be factored into the cost. But we think there's at least $10 million worth of future costs that have been included in this report that we can, with expert testimony, I'm not an expert, but with expert testimony, we can convince you that those are not real hard costs and that this is a great benefit to the county. So that's a summation of what our experts have been able to put together for us in just 24 hours.
Do you have any more questions, ma'am?
I don't have any more questions. Thanks, Jack.
Okay, Commissioner Smith, are you in there? Did you want to talk, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say to Mr. Kirschenbaum that any decision that I make this evening regarding option 1 or option 2 would not be to the exclusion of future consideration for Florida recyclers.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion at this point. I suppose this would be under option 3, although it is similar to one of the existing options. I'd like to move that we direct staff to proceed with final permitting activity, but that at this point we don't authorize the construction of the landfill. If the chair and the other members of the commission are so inclined to have a workshop or to have this brought back at another time, I'm fine with supporting that. But at this point, I think we should go ahead and get the permit signed, return it to the Army Corps, and have Mr. Kirschenbaum and his clients prepare to make whatever case they'd like, understanding that we're really coming up against a very strict timeline here.
Commissioner Zonka?
And I mean, I could go into a diatribe of why I think developing 192 is a big mistake, especially with the opportunity to expand where we're at, you know, the opportunity for another 19 years. And 19 years, I mean, at the very least, for us to break ground on 192 without at least doing everything we can not to put ourselves in that position, you know, I think that it's reckless. You know, I think the thing that I really missed in the first time I read the report, which kind of, you know, aside from the obvious misunderstandings and disagreements on what our report was compared to the response that we got late today, was the PFAS comment. I mean, it seems to be a buzzword, and it seems to be like it was put in our report to try to incite emotion, and I think that was irresponsible. For me, I'm never going to support a landfill in 192. I mean, for obvious reasons, you know, and whether or not this commission agrees with that, I mean, I think, again, we're beating a dead horse, because I think we've all argued it. But I don't want to waste anybody else's time either. If this is the way that the votes are going to go, if a workshop's not going to change anybody's mind, then that's up to the fellow commissioners. If the commissioners are open to the idea of not developing the 192 site, then I'm okay with the workshop. But I don't want to go into this, you know, with that risk, you know, if we go ahead and sign this permit. So I'll never be comfortable with it, because to put a landfill at the entrance to our county and to make another footprint for a dump, I think is a tragic mistake. And I think we need to do everything in our power to make sure that we don't do that, or at least we can at least look at our children and say this is something that we didn't do or we were able to avoid. So I will not be supporting signing the permit. And, you know, this is in my district, and I realize that some commissioners may not care. You know, some commissioners may see this as an opportunity to stick it to District 5, but either way, you're sticking it to the whole county if you think a landfill is what we want at the entrance to our county. Welcome to Brevard County and our dump. It just makes me really sad. But again, I said I wasn't going to go into a diatribe, and I have, so.
Commissioner Lober?
I was going to say, at this point, it may fail for lack of a second, so there may not be an issue. I haven't heard anything seconding the motion, so we'll see.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Lober to move forward with the permit and move forward with a workshop as well. Correct, sir?
Yes, if everyone's amenable with that, or we have a majority, I'm happy to consider it. I will tell you, though, and Mr. Kirschenbaum knows based on our conversations, they have a little bit of work to do to get me to be in a position where I would be remotely comfortable with proceeding. I can tell you it would be an uphill battle for them, but it's not to say that it's impossible. I think they have a lot of legwork to accomplish on the front end. But at this point, I think that, you know, we really do need to get that permit signed. I do agree with Commissioner Zonka, though, that we should do everything we can reasonably, with that being the operative word, reasonably, to try to avoid breaking ground if there is another option that is a reasonable alternative. I just have yet to see that. This, to me, I hate to tie two issues together, but this kind of reminds me of when we had our waste management contract go out, same department, obviously, where we went with the lowest bidder, even though a lot of folks don't realize that. We negotiated the lowest bidder down a high six-digit number, but we had a couple folks that were disinclined to support that because it was politically unpopular at the time. This may be something that's politically unpopular, but when there's no reasonable alternative, the answer isn't we sit on our hands and do nothing. So, you know, I think giving Mr. Kirschenbaum and his clients one very final opportunity to make their case, we'll see what they come up with. And if he's able to rebut the arguments to the commission's satisfaction or a majority of the commission's satisfaction, we'll simply have the ability to expand on 192, or to start construction, I should say, on 192, but that doesn't obligate us to do so.
Commissioner Tobiah?
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I'm inclined to generally sign the permit to move forward, I also agree with Commissioner Smith that these are not mutually exclusive. However, with your indulgence, may I ask Mr. Rodriguez a question? The assumption made by the valuation deals with a height variance that is somewhere in Melbourne right now. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have any idea where that is today?
The latest thing that we heard this afternoon was that a representative from Florida Recyclers has dropped off a package this afternoon over to the city of Melbourne. It has not started review yet, and I don't know regarding the state of it. All I know is that it was taken to to the city of Melbourne approximately at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Ms. Rodriguez, didn't we talk about a height variance at this board months and months ago? Didn't we have a conversation concerning the valuation and the...
First time that we started talking about it, I think it was in April or May of last year.
Okay.
We had another board meeting in July or June, and then another one regarding the same topic in October.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I'm not opposed to moving forward with, I guess, the intent of Commissioner Lober's idea. However, I couldn't support something that would have a workshop when there's a zoning issue before Melbourne that is certainly not going to be resolved by the time by the time the workshop would be, and that is a difference of whatever $3 million right here. So I don't see a need, and this works against my self-interest here, but I don't see a need for a workshop at this point, as we're not going to have any type of pertinent information to make a comparison at the scheduled workshop. I don't see why Florida Recyclers at any time can't come forward, or their representative can come forward, and we would provide them, as Commissioner Zonk was very helpful for providing extra time. So if you take off the workshop, I would vote for this. But if there is a workshop, I don't see any useful nature in that. So I would vote against it with that provision.
County Manager, if they just dropped it off now, how long would it take for us to know if the city would go ahead and approve the height change?
We have no idea how long that process could be from the city's perspective.
Yes, sir, please come up. We probably need your input here on this right now.
For the record, it's Jack Kirschenbaum.
Yes, sir.
Still. That which was dropped off this afternoon was responses to questions that the city of Melbourne had. They have had the application for over 6 months, and it was scheduled to be heard, I think, in January, this week or last month, I don't remember which, but it was postponed for additional comments from Florida Recyclers. And so this is at the tail end, not the beginning, of the application for variance. These were just minor comments, minor bits of information that the city needed. It wasn't just initially dropped off today in anticipation of this meeting.
How long do you think before you would know if that got approved?
I would estimate that February is the month, February or March at the latest.
Okay, so if maybe it would be better to maybe try to do a workshop in March after we know that you've got that document and we can have a discussion.
That certainly makes sense. That's my understanding of the timeframes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lober, you're waving at me, but you don't have your light on.
I'm sorry.
So-
Yeah, I may have to have them take a look at this, because if I mash it a certain way, sometimes it goes and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
I got to figure that out with them. But, a couple thoughts, and, just to kind of give you the conclusion in the beginning, Commissioner Tobiah, I will go ahead and modify my motion to exclude the portion relating to the workshop, but I will also put out there, if someone wants to make that motion separately, I'll support it separately. I just like to get as much of this moving forward as we can. Mr. Kirschenbaum mentioned earlier that he was quite confident that they would acquire the variance. I don't know that it's technically a variance that they're seeking, but I suppose at least I could see how it would be viewed to accomplish the same thing. That said, I actually was at the Melbourne Commission meeting when we had our height increase approved. Yuri was there. I know Abby was there from County Legal. I think we had maybe the assistant director under Yuri there as well. We had a few other staff members. In my recollection, and in all honesty, I've not reviewed the tape. They tape their meetings just as we do. I do have a recollection, and I'm fairly confident that it's right, that the fact that we are the county and that the vertical increase was put to them as being necessary for us to continue our solid waste operations, I don't think that was lost on them. I'm not saying that they won't or it's impossible for them to grant the request of a private entity, but I can tell you it seemed to me that they were very much focused on the fact that we are who we are and our needs are really the community's needs. So whether it happens or not, I do think that the level of confidence of Mr. Kirschenbaum may exceed my level of confidence in it. I will say, though, that kind of the counter argument here to what Commissioner Tobiah had mentioned with potentially not having a benefit by way of having a workshop is that one of two things is going to happen with the variance in all likelihood. Either they're going to grant it or they're not going to grant it. If the pricing is such and the valuation is such and the terms are such that we're not going to agree on any of it, regardless of whether it's granted, then I agree there's no reason to have a workshop. But if we can get to one of those scenarios, one of those outcomes where we could potentially match things up and move forward in that direction, then I think there is still a value in having a workshop. The alternative, though, if folks are just dead set against a workshop, because I would like to make sure that we do all of our due diligence in this, and I certainly, I would invite Mr. Kirschenbaum to let me know what else I could have done in the many, many, many times we've communicated on this. But I do think that we should allow them that opportunity, but I don't want to do that if that means holding up the entire process. I don't know, and I would have to ask Yuri for his input or John Denninghoff for his input by way of how long it would take the Army Corps to do what they have to after we sign that permit, or I guess technically, Madam Chair, after you sign that permit package and send it back. If we can do it within that time frame where we're not going to be held up and by extension subjecting the county to a risk that we may have a problem if we have a hurricane in the next couple of years, I have no problem waiting if we have that luxury. If we don't have the luxury, then that's a different story. But I'll go ahead and modify my motion at this point to remove the workshop requirement. Again, noting that if someone else wants to make that motion to put a workshop in place, I'll happily second it.
You have them.
Madam Chair, if
Please.
I may, a decision is really needed pretty soon. Having a workshop, for example, in March would make us spend money that we would spend in option 2 because we would have to close down the landfill and we would have to transport the material over to Cocoa.
The Cocoa landfill, what class is that?
That's a Class 1.
Right.
Which accepts Class 1 and Class 3.
And which is the one that we have, and we don't really have any other ones that can take Class 1 waste, correct?
That's the only one, ma'am.
So if we start filling that up, we're going to be in big trouble then with Class 1 waste down the road. So,
That's correct.
Ms. Zonka, I'm Commissioner Zonka, I'm going to call on you in just a second, but here's my thought with what you guys want to do. I would rather not increase to another spot. But on the other side, I'm not willing to give up the property either. It's our property. We're gonna keep it. If we permit it,
Ma'am, it
if we
might help.
permit it, it might be fine. But I wouldn't mind if we permit it. I still want to move forward with the other options because I think that's what's best for the county. I know we got to look at the financial parts of it, but if you're thinking you can maneuver a little bit, knowing that we have intentions of doing something different, I'm kind of hoping we could get a little more creative. Maybe even if we even reduce the footprint of what we're even trying to do with this, anything we can do to help in that over-end goal, I would very much appreciate. So that's my thought on it. I'd really rather not have to do another spot. I really would want to still explore in a workshop some options. I think we need to do that. As far as permitting it, I'm probably fine with that, but on the basis that we would really try hard to do something different. I think even as a nation, but as a community, we have to do better with our garbage. And if we don't soon, we're going to have some real problems, So we've got to maybe spend some money on figuring out how to deal with taking out the trash. So I'm really open for those ideas as well. That would be a good thing for us to leave behind when we leave this commission. So that's my thoughts. Commissioner Zonka, you're up. Would you like to see if Commissioner Smith has something first, ma'am? Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've heard the discussion, and I understand where everyone is coming from, and I have my own ideas, partly what you guys have talked about. But for me, the option one is the one that makes the most sense. And all we have to do is look at how much pushback we got when we approved the most recent contract with Waste Management. They came in with the lowest bid was still 39% higher than what people were paying before. And I don't know about you guys, but I had people calling my office like stuck pigs. They couldn't believe that we approved it. We were in the tank for these people, and they were in our pocket, or we were in their pocket, or whatever. And you can only imagine, I can only imagine, how loud the uproar is going to be if we don't have something like this option one that we can lean on either next month or next year or 5 years from now to put our own garbage. And if we get to a point where we've filled the other places up, the other locations up, and we have to search for a county that would take it, the money that it would cost to truck it there would be astronomical, and we're totally at the mercy of the other county. They can charge us anything because we have no options. So at least if we have option one on the table and we sign this paperwork, we're preventing any of that from happening. And we can go forward in this county securely knowing that we've got our future covered as far as landfills are concerned. And it's a hot topic because, as Commissioner Zonka said, she doesn't want it because of the eyesore that it potentially could be. But I would submit that you could be 20 years down the road before that hill even becomes visible. And by then, who knows what technology would provide us. Maybe we don't even need a landfill at that point in time, or maybe we could use that landfill that existed on 192 when we get it up and going. Maybe it will supply electric to the south end of the county at some point in time, 20, 25 years down the road. So I'm all in on option one, but I'm willing to listen to whatever other ideas we have. But I think we need to secure this landfill because, as Yuri has said, time is running out. Time is of the essence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Zonka?
Again, and you guys know where I stand on this, and I will never be in support of signing that permit because even if we allow staff to continue to try to negotiate with Florida Recyclers, then we will have permitted it and essentially made that a landfill. And I understand it makes the property more valuable. I understand Chairwoman does not want to sell the property, and I definitely would not want to sell it as another landfill to a private entity anyway. Right. So again, I think that I've argued this point significantly over the last 4 years. It was something that I was fighting before I was even a commissioner, and I will never be in support of that landfill out there, especially when there's that other option of opportunity that could potentially give us 19 more years at Sarno. I think it's reckless. And I think, and I'm not taking a shot at anybody in particular up here, but this is my district. So if the commission wants to go ahead and, and go forward with this, or if they end up supporting us breaking ground out there or whatever the next move is, workshop or not, I would move, I would like to either suggest that we modify our motion or move to make that motion to name the landfill after either Commissioner Lober, who made the initial motion, or another commissioner who wants to own it. Because I don't want any part of it. I don't want to own it, and I think it's disgusting. And that would be my motion, or that would be my suggestion to add to the motion.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Tobiah?
Regardless how I vote, the one thing I want, I'd love a Tobiah dump. I think that would be a wonderful legacy to leave.
You should have been the one to make the motion.
However, we've got two time frames coming up here that Mr. Rodriguez was talking about, a time in which it's going to cost additional resources to take that to the COCO facility, and then Florida Recycler has a time frame as to the valuation of the land and at that variance. And I don't think it's fair to ask taxpayers to pay extra time. I think that Mr. Kirschenbaum, working for Gray Robinson, can certainly hustle things along through that process. So, and it sounds like at least one other commissioner, it sounds like potentially you are in favor of a workshop, but I think it would be fruitless to do a workshop either after we were paying additional costs, like Mr. Rodriguez said, and I don't know when that's going to be, May or June, and it would be fruitless also to do one prior to getting the response back from the city of Melbourne. So if that all aligned, it may be, there are significant hurdles, to be very clear, outside of just that height variance. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3 million in an escrow deposit that it's deficient. So when we're looking at whether we value it at 2, 5, or 8, if we were to take it over, there's a $3 million deposit that we would initially, need to deal with. There's the $2 million of mulch on there. There's $700,000 in road. There's a water retention pond that may need to be switched. So there's many other variables floating out there. But I agree with you that we absolutely need to have all the information before we make the decision to go one way or another. I just don't want to hold off any longer to put taxpayers in a position that Yuri was talking about, where we have to start taking that refuse to the facility in Cocoa. So if I would support I would change my mind and support a workshop, but we need those two variables to come forward. Otherwise, it's just, quite frankly, a waste of time. We would not have all the information to make an accurate decision. But in the meantime, I would agree with Commissioner Smith, and I think option number 1 would be the right way to go.
Commissioner Lober.
Yeah, I was going to say the other alternative, just listening to Commissioner Tobiah here, with respect to the concerns over the timing on a workshop, I don't have a problem if folks are okay with having Mr. Kirschenbaum just approach us outside of a commission meeting or outside of a workshop as soon as he's comfortable and as soon as he's able to do that with the information as it becomes available. I don't have an issue with that either. I share Commissioner Tobiah's concern that we don't end up in a situation where we have no option. That's the issue. I've heard that staff may have thrown in PFAS to incite a motion, and there might be a commissioner or commissioners up here to stick it to D5. It has nothing to do with it. The bottom line is we have no reasonable alternative. It's just like the waste management fee increase, where we had the lowest bidder that we went with, and we had at least one commissioner up here. Well, I don't know what the answer is, but it's not this. I can't support a fee increase. Well, what's the alternative? Let the trash pile up? We're in the same situation now as we were then. Is it politically popular? No. Is it going to irritate people? Yes. Is it the right thing to do? Absolutely. If someone comes up with a reasonable alternative, whether it's Florida Recyclers or otherwise, I'm happy to go in that direction. And if someone wants to name a landfill after Commissioner Tobiah or after me, I don't care. If that's the right thing for the county, name it after me. Name it after my dog, just don't name it after my wife. Whatever you need to do in order to feel like, you got your shot in. But when I look at this based on the fiduciary obligation I have to my constituents and based on how it would impact the county as a whole. And I have yet to hear anything that suggests we have a better option. So it's great to say this is horrible and it's terrible and this is not the way to go, but what's the other option? That's what I'm not hearing. That's what I haven't heard in the 2+ years that I've been here so far. I don't know how long this has been. I heard from Commissioner Wisnardi, this is from prior to her getting on the commission, or maybe even prior to getting on council down in Palm Bay, but I don't hear an alternative. So we have years and years and years of a problem, but we have no solution that is a reasonable alternative. So I'm sorry. I know that it's not something that's wonderful in the sense that it's a perfect option. If shooting it on a rocket to the sun were cheap and easy, then maybe that would be the way to go, but that's not an option at this point. So, I'm going to stick with the original motion that I made as modified to approve the signing of the permit. I really will give Mr. Kirschenbaum and his clients a fair shake moving forward. I will tell you, though, if someone wants to bully me into not supporting the 192 project, I can swear to you that's not going to have the desired outcome. That'll be the fastest way to push me in the other camp, and quite frankly, it sounds like there were at least 2 votes there already, so it is what it is, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, Commissioner Lober, Commissioner Tobiah said he would change his to do a workshop later. Are you changing your?
If we have 3, I'm fine any which way. I defer to Commissioner Tobiah, and my motion will reflect it accordingly.
Madam Chair, those two conditions have to be met. I don't want the workshop after, and Mr. Rodriguez, at when do we cross the proverbial Rubicon here in which we start taking that refuse to the cocoa facility, thus costing taxpayers in the long run extra dollars?
There is a couple of things that can be done parallel. By that, I mean signing the permit.
I think we're there. I think we're there. I think.
I was just trying to, signing the permit is just is the end of phase 1. There's still a bunch of other permits that have to be acquired. There's still a contract with Deseret that has to be followed, and that means that we have to give them X amount of time in order to vacate a portion. What I'm trying to explain is that there is no construction that's going to occur, but there is a lot of paperwork that's going to occur in the next 3 or 4 months. Any construction that would be occurring would not be until late summer.
So the question goes back, at what point, Madam Chair?
Please.
To answer your question.
Give me a month in which there would be an additional cost to taxpayers if we decided to go in the other direction.
You're looking at October of this year.
Commissioners, if I may.
Does that mean we wouldn't have to permit till October this year?
No, it sounds like we have to permit immediately here.
What Yuri is trying to explain is that we need to go now with the permitting. We were directed previously to cease permitting activities. We need to resume those for the 192 site in order to be able to be in position to start construction there in a manner and time that would allow us to have the landfill ready when the Sarno landfill is full, based on the projections that we have currently. If we have a hurricane, it may fill more quickly. And
your guess would be, when would that construction start, Mr. Denninghoff?
Excuse me?
When would that construction start?
Well, I think we would be in position to start the construction in the summertime, which is what Yuri was just saying, sometime late summer probably. And so right now we need to be able to go with the permitting and the and gear up to get ready to go to bid and get all the documents ready for the construction process to be able to begin in a timely manner, which would be, we anticipate, in the summer. And if we can't get it underway by October, which is what you just said, then now we're looking at probably having run out of all time and time options that are associated with, we'd have to accelerate the construction, which always costs a lot more money.
Gotcha. Madam Chair? So it looks like that window is, for the workshop, would be before late summer, but after the potential approval of, because I don't think if Melbourne doesn't approve this, there's just no way the numbers work. I don't even know the numbers work this way, to be very clear. But after such a time that Melbourne approves that height variance. So if there is a window, I don't know if that period will ever occur, but if it would, then I would support having a workshop, because at that point we would have all the information, Madam Chair.
I have a question, because I know we're doing this permitting, and I see in here that you have created a self-imposed height restriction. You did have 311, and we just imposed 106. So let me ask you this. Let's say that, okay, you guys will do the permit, we come back, we have the workshop, we go ahead and we work on some things, we figure out what the main the landfill is. If there's something that's not very environmentally challenging that we're putting there, maybe this is where we can go ahead and put more restrictions on ourselves, that maybe we would just take mulch there. So I think we can do some more creative work on this. And I think we do need a workshop, because you've got some ideas, and I think we probably do need to work on this part of it. But I think we can still work on some things creatively, how to be the least damaging to this piece of property, maybe, and maybe never have to use it. But I think as long as we don't cause damage, but we spend as much time really examining this, I think it might be a good thing to do. And I know it's a lot of work, but I would love for us to do that. You know, if we permit it tonight, but we still come back, we plan on workshops, and we just get really creative with a bunch of different ideas. You know, maybe maybe the height can go down more, and we can do certain things of how we can maximize other facilities. I don't think we want to use the Cocoa one, because it's the only class one we have, and we need to protect the ability to take that there. But maybe there's some other creative things we do. And I think that might need to be what we start having a conversation on, is my thought right now, and how to least impact this. So I want to throw that out there. I really would, I think you're right, Commissioner Tobiah. I think this early with a workshop, I think we need to spend some of that time, sir, but I think we do need to come together and have really good conversations with all the data and the cost. I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith. Yes, sir, please.
I just wanted to jump in, and I understand what you're saying. We can have the workshop if we approve option one. As I said in the beginning, the very first thing I said, if we approve option one, it doesn't exclude us moving forward with the Florida recyclers. And if that provides us an intermediate option, then I think each and every one of us would go for that. But we've still got the ace in the hole, in that we have US 192 ready to go whenever we get to it, whether it be a year from now or 8 years from now. We have done what we need to do. We're under a time constraint, I think, January 21st to get that option accomplished. And we can have a workshop in April or in the summertime, depending on whenever we have all the information that we need on the Florida recyclers, and whether the height restriction option is given to us by the city of Melbourne. So as I said before, if we move forward with option one, it doesn't preclude us doing something different in the future, but it does pave the way for us to get this going and kind of move forward from square one. So I would like to, if nobody seconds Commissioner Lober's motion, I would like to make a motion that we proceed with option one and continue to work with Florida recyclers, and at which time they get the variance, that we could have a workshop and discuss what we can do with that site.
Okay, so Commissioner Lober, you have a light on, but I think we're getting about ready to make a decision.
Yeah, I think it's been talked through. I was going to mention something, but at this point, I think it would just be a little repetitive.
Okay, Commissioner Zonka did chime in one more time, and I'm going to allow her, because I think this
I was going
affects
to
her
say, I think
most.
my light was on from the last time, but Commissioner Lober pressed his again, and you thought that, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I didn't have you, but you just came on now.
I think I'm not going to repeat myself, but the other option is Florida recyclers. So to say that there's not another option, we've been trying to work this option for a long time now. I mean, I can't speak to what the county did before we were here. I know that they went through several years of litigation with Deseret Ranch and eminent domain issues and everything else. I mean, this is millions of dollars in the making. So a lot of decisions were made before we were here, but this is the other option, and it's a great option. And if everything goes, hopefully, and it looks like a strong possibility as planned, it could potentially easily give us 19 years more, assuming that we've not found a better way to deal with trash, more, or they even have other things now where they're pulling waste out of landfills and using it for energy in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. So to say there's not another option is just not true. That is our other option. All we're doing, though, is moving forward with the 192 site because it's easy. I mean, that's the one that we've spent all this money for and all this time for, and got this nice, beautiful land out there that's just ready for a nice landfill. So if you're not opposed, you said you weren't opposed to us naming it after you. I would love that. Commissioner Tobiah? You can be the trash mountain and Commissioner Lober can be the Lober landfill?
I don't know if we have to be dead, but.
I don't think so. I don't think there's a requirement for
I've
it.
learned in my district it's better.
Hey, if we have that PFAS get out, maybe we'll be dead.
Okay, Commissioner Lober, I'm going to have you re-say your motion one more time, sir.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry.
You got it, Madam Chair.
You guys are appreciated it, too.
So just for clarity's sake, Commissioner Tobiah, do you want me to include the workshop, or do you not want me to include the workshop?
The workshop is fine as long as those two conditions are met before there's additional burden placed on county taxpayers and after such a time that Melbourne approves the variance.
Okay, so my motion at this point will be to go ahead and direct staff to take all necessary action to ensure permitting for the 192 site consistent with it being used as a landfill, but not to commence any sort of construction activity. If they need to do anything by way of waiving policy or putting in a BCR, this would authorize them to do that as well at the county manager's option. Beyond that, if we are unable to come to an agreement with respect to a workshop date with Florida Recyclers by way of Mr. Kirschenbaum, I would ask that staff bring this item back to the commission in time for us to make a decision so that we don't run into exactly those problems that Commissioner Tobiah mentioned, namely that we would incur additional costs for taxpayers. So really, if we have the workshop, that's the goal. But if we find that we just can't figure out an appropriate date, or if Melbourne doesn't come back on the variance request at a drop dead date, as determined by staff's to bring it back to us so that we can consider whether or not to pursue construction at that point in time.
Okay, did you guys get all that? All right. I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Tobiah. Commissioner Smith, are you still with us, sir?
I am indeed.
Okay, I'm
And
going
the only difference between his motion and mine is that he's putting the roadblock in there that the county can't go forward with any construction unless they come back to us first. Is that correct?
I believe so.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, if that's what you guys think works, I'm okay with that. I just think that at some point it's going to be obvious that we're going to have to break ground, whether it be, like I said before, whether it's 6 months or 6 years. I don't know why we're requiring them to come back to us for another decision. I think the decision will make itself when it's needed. It's needed. But if you guys are good with that, then I'll support it.
Okay. Commissioner Zonk, is that a new light, ma'am?
No.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Passes 3-2 with Commissioners Zonka and Pritchett in opposition. And really would like to get a workshop and have all these discussions, and I know you guys are good with it as well. Thank you.
That will cancel the workshop that's scheduled in 2 weeks then.
I don't think we can do that one with all the data. Do you,
Right.
sir, have any ideas or?
I don't. I think 2 weeks might be too tight, but if it's at all possible, I will contact your manager.
Okay, I think too that we need to discuss what we want to impose on ourselves and what we want to the end result of all this to be as well, because you are permitting now, which is what you all had to do. So I think we need to have a discussion on what we can do to do the best for the county. You guys already know that. So, okay, we're going to move on to item J1.
Motion to approve J1, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have a motion on the table. I'm going to go ahead and let him say what it is, and I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
this should be pretty easy, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Matthew Wallace from Public Safety, and I have a superstar, John Scott, from Emergency Management. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Just to briefly explain J1, J1 seeks the Commission to consider and allocate up to $2 million from the Public Safety Fund to expand our vaccination program in Brevard County for up to 60 days. Currently, 6 months. 6 months. Currently, we have one vaccination location in Brevard County at the Department of Health. And if I could for 1 second, there's a huge success story there. We started out at 100 vaccinations per day with the capacity, but we're emergency management working with the Department of Health. We are now up to 700 vaccinations a day on average. And we hope to do some process improvements and add a few more resources and get that location up to 1,000 vaccinations per day. This initiative would add a second location through either a vendor or through other opportunities. And my county manager is talking to me. Don't you need me to stop, boss?
Yeah, this we'll use the $2 million to add additional capacity. How that will happen isn't known yet. We are going through a process looking at working with various partners, which may include each of our hospital systems, and it may include private contractors. But we're just looking for the authority to move forward with that and have those dollars available with board approval to utilize from the Public Safety Fund.
And this is going to rely heavily upon supply, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And we will bring that decision back to the board once purchasing, and we work with the team to find out who can provide that capacity. The whole initiative of this is the state of Florida is talking to the counties that the bigger capacities that you can demonstrate to the state, they will match that with vaccinations. So if we increase from 1,000 a day to 2,000 a day, the state of Florida will look positively and give us more vaccine shots in the future, as opposed to if we keep our capacity down. So this puts the county in a very good competitive place with the rest of the state to maximize those shots in arms to get these into our citizens in Brevard County.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I have a light. Commissioner Tobiah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be supporting this, but I'd be remiss if I did not particularly thank Commissioner Zonka for prioritizing public health of our residents countywide over special interests, pet projects such as zoos, animal shelters, and large corporations. By allocating her district's fund to her district funding, the $5 million to Public Safety Fund, many lives can be saved. The economy will be able to recover more quickly, and residents will be able to feel more safe in their communities. It's probably nice to hand out the millions of dollars to friends and local businesses, but you prioritized, and now we're seeing the fruits of that tough decision. So thank you.
I also want to thank her for working in the public health care and doing all that you're doing to help get people safe through this crisis. You're welcome. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Oh, you have a light. I don't have you on again. We're going to have IT. There you go.
I think Mr. Abate kind of addressed that. I want to make sure, because I don't know if, maybe it's just because I'm a provider. I'm assuming it's because I have a state license and I'm a provider. But I've been getting like solicitations from companies, I guess, that are contracting through the state. And I don't know if they're legit or not. I'm assuming that they are. I don't know. I want to make sure we're not competing with the state or paying triple of what we need to for staff to administer these vaccinations, especially when I believe that one of our hospital systems has volunteers doing them now on their own time. So maybe that's the call too, to see how many volunteers you can get, because I'd be happy as someone who's licensed, because I know that criteria also just came out from the Department of Health. You had to hold certain licenses to be able to give them and that sort of thing. So I would just caution you just to make sure whatever agencies we're looking at, that's a question that you can ask, is what they're paying their employees. If they want our contract or a contract with the county, then we want to make sure that we're not getting scalped, Just because the money's there doesn't mean we need to be wasteful with it. Because again, I think the goal is to get them out as quick as possible, but let's make sure that we're not just blowing through it.
We are definitely doing that, and I've had that dialogue with our Central Services Director, and he's making those inquiries as we speak.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Lober.
Sure. Just one other thing, and this is separate from the motion. I would just say, from the get-go, when we started to get the vaccines, I've never wanted there to be a financial reason that we're getting less than the total number that are available for Brevard. So if you see any other opportunity like you have with this to increase the amount or to set conditions such that we're likely to see an increased amount of vaccine made available to us, please bring it back. I can tell you if another commissioner wants to call an out-of-session meeting or an out-of-order meeting for it, I'll just tell Mr. Bate now, you can just consider this my approval in advance. I'll make myself available any day, any time, if anyone else wants to do it. So I don't want there to be a financial reason that we're not vaccinating as many people as we possibly can.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion on the table, still waiting on a second.
Second.
Oh, second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 5-0. Thanks, guys. All right, item J2. Commissioner Tobiah, I think this is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I go ahead?
Please.
Great. On December 22nd, the board considered an item regarding a lease of property by Brevard County to the USSSA. During discussion of this item, it was brought to the board's attention that an amendment to the supermajority requirement contained in Section 2-244 would be brought back for consideration as it seemed to have no applicable purpose. The county attorney was asked to opine on whether there's specific historical current purpose for the supermajority requirement in this section. Ms. Bentley was unaware of one and took further steps, reaching out to her predecessor, Mr. Knox, who was also unaware of any specific purpose. The county attorney's office has further identified Section 2-247 as having a similar issue. This item requests permission to advertise amendments to Section 2-244 and 2-247 to remove these supermajority requirements. Upon researching this topic, the CAO made a suggestion of amending 2-249 in order to simplify administration of notices of such leases or sales. The suggested amendments would allow for posting of the agenda on Legistar to be sufficient for public notice. Madam Chair, that is what this change entails.
Thank you, sir. Well, you will have my support. Commissioner Lober?
May I ask Commissioner Tobiah a question? Commissioner Tobiah, just briefly on this. I normally am of the mind that if it's working reasonably well, we might as well leave it alone. If there's room for improvement, though, that's a different story. With respect to this, is this something that you feel real strongly about? If it's important to you, I'll support it, but otherwise I'm just not inclined to.
Madam Chair?
Please.
I think a supermajority is extremely important for leases that are below market value or sales that are below or purchases that are above market value. However, those that do not fall in that, I don't think need a supermajority. So for that reason, I think that this is just extraneous and can be done away with.
Okay, you got my support.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Commissioner Tobiah. Second, yes?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Great. I have no more public comment cards, so we're going to move into board reports. County Manager.
I have no report.
Thank you, sir. County Attorney.
Yes, I have two relatively short items. They're merely updates. I won't be asking any action by the board. On December 22nd, at Commissioner Tobiah's request, the board directed staff to provide a report on two items. The first item addressed two Melbourne CRAs and the city. The question asked was whether, based on the draft report issued by the Auditor General, has anything changed that would allow the county to recoup tax increment funds from the downtown CRA. First, you should be aware that that document was a draft, and the entities mentioned in that report have an opportunity to respond. Their response is due January 19th, 2021. Thereafter, the audit may be revised and finalized. At that point, we can complete the review and analysis. While we are waiting for the report to be finalized, we are looking at finding number 11 of the draft report, which indicates the two CRAs did not comply with statutory requirements for year-end transfers in 2017 and 2018. We are exploring various routes or options that might be available to address that issue. Of course, if the response comes back and rebuts the findings in 11, the legal routes may change as well. So we will have to wait to come back to the board after we have a final report. The second item was a request related to COVID-19 vaccines and the ability of the county to mandate vaccines for employees and first responders. Pursuant to guidance from the U.S. Equal
Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, an employer is allowed to mandate COVID vaccinations when employees pose a direct threat to themselves or others by their physical presence in the workplace without being immunized. In other words, it is permitted if workers would pose a significant risk of substantial harm to the health or safety of the individual or others that cannot be eliminated or reduced by reasonable accommodation. However, if the county chose to mandate that first responders get the COVID-19 vaccine, either as a condition of employment for new employees or as a mandate for existing employees, the county must do so in a manner that does not violate any federal or state law. For example, an employer must consider reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities. To illustrate this point, an employee may have a medical reason for not getting vaccinated. In such a circumstance, the employer cannot automatically exclude that person from the workplace nor take any negative action against them. The employer must have in place a systematic and interactive process of evaluating requests for reasonable accommodations. Brevard County currently has an existing system in place for considering requests for reasonable accommodations, AO02, which can be utilized for this purpose. Other considerations must be carefully contemplated in developing a policy for mandating a vaccine, including the following: the impact of the emergency use status of the vaccine, the impact to collective bargaining, if any, and the continued protection of privacy rights of the employees. We will continue to work on these issues and come back with a report.
Okay, Commissioner Lober.
Is it working? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I was just looking at the light here to make sure it actually is on. No, I just wanted to reiterate what I said at the last meeting when this was first brought up. You know, from my perspective, I certainly would encourage everyone that's able to be vaccinated to be vaccinated. I think from a community standpoint, that's certainly beneficial, but I do have a real profound issue with us mandating that certain individuals be vaccinated. If there was a concern that they pose a risk to those folks with whom they interact, I would suggest maybe we can look at putting them in alternate positions if there's a lateral option available. I would certainly prefer that if there really is a risk, but I just have a very, very negative opinion of forcing people to have medical treatment that they may not want, even if it's something that I absolutely would get myself. So, you know, to the extent that we can incentivize them, as I've tried to do out of a portion of the CARES Act funding, wonderful. It was a little bit depressing, I should say, to see that the poll that was put together by the fire union indicated something like 30% of those folks that responded would actually get vaccinated if the vaccine was available at no cost to them, which is in fact the case. So I'm hoping that incentivization that was put forward actually increases that to some meaningful degree, whether that means 40, 50, 60%, we'll see. But I have a real issue with telling folks, well, we're going to have to stick you with a needle for something that you may have an anaphylactic reaction to, you may have some other issue. I don't have any level of comfort with that. If we wanted to go in that direction, I would feel more comfortable, although I'm not necessarily in love with this either, if we said for new hires, okay, you have to agree to X, Y, and Z, but for the folks that are here that understood the terms and conditions of employment were as they were, I just don't know that it's fair to tell them, well, now we're going to have to stick you in the arm for something. I feel real uncomfortable with that.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner
Madam
Tobiah.
Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Smith, you're right after Commissioner Tobiah. Give me just a second.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Tobiah.
Board reports, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
And I have two reports, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and second your motion, Commissioner Tobiah.
Madam Chair, I've been a little lax on my appointment to the TDC as my focus has been elsewhere. It's my understanding that a vote for a new chair will be coming up. And though I greatly disagree with Mr. Winston's, much of the time I know his heart is always in the right place. I know he works extremely hard for not only the zoo, but all of Brevard County. And I think he would be a great addition to the TDC. Unfortunately, by the time that he agreed, I think he was in shock when I called. It was past the deadline. So the reason I put it here is to give him the opportunity to make that vote for the chair of the TDC. He served as a subcommittee member previously, so he has a great deal of expertise. And Ms. Bentley was extremely helpful. There will have to be a disclosure in which he signs because 5% of TDC revenue goes to the zoo. It has been cleared through the CAO's office, as well as Mr. Winston spoke with the board. They would be in support of that. So if you would like to wait till the next meeting, I'd be more than willing to, but unfortunately, he wouldn't have the opportunity to vote for the chair. So I'm asking
I'm fine.
for
We're
your
just voting to
approval.
put him
of
on the TDC, correct?
That is,
Yep.
that
I'm
all.
seconding
good.
it as well.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Is that all, Commissioner Tobiah?
And there's a conflict waiver as well?
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Madam.
included?
That needs to be voted on as well? Madam?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I will pass that out. It's a 2-page conflict waiver, so you can see it.
As Commissioner Tobiah indicated, it's because of the zoo receiving funds. It's an employment conflict, but for advisory boards, that conflict can be waived. It was waived for Mr. Winston for his subcommittee service, so it's just a new waiver for his new position.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion, Commissioner Tobiah, for this?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lober. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colonel Matt Wallace, who's the Director of Public Safety and a proud alumnus of the University of Alabama last night. Nick Saban dressed 45 players. The other 40 had to dress themselves, but went on to beat Ohio State by a score of 52-24. As a proud member of the Gator Nation, it's tough for me to say, but I'm very happy that a SEC team won the national championship. So congratulations, Alabama, and congratulations, Colonel Wallace.
All right, then. Commissioner Smith.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would like to just piggyback on what Commissioner Lober was saying about that he had heartburn with regard to us requiring people to be stuck in the arm for something that they don't want. I think if we make and give them the option, they should have the option to say no. So that's that. I, too, wish to wish Colonel Wallace congratulations as well. I understand he worked out really hard. He did extra jumping jacks. He studied the playbook really hard, and he was in front of his TV cheering his team on last night. So congratulations. And lastly, I am seeking approval by a vote of the board to pay up to an additional $20,000 per small business that can show equivalent loss of revenue from March to June of 2020. This would bring the potential reimbursement up to $30,000 with COVID funds and CARES money. This applies to businesses who requested additional funds by the announced deadline of 5 p.m. December 18th, 2020, and have a business address within District 1, 3, 4, or 5. This does not include District 2 businesses due to Commissioner Lober announcing he has his own plans for small businesses exclusively benefiting those in District 2 only. So I need a second for this and a vote.
Okay, that's fair enough. Commissioner Lober, I'm sorry, and then Commissioner Tobiah.
Just a quick question, Commissioner Smith, and I think I'm on board with what you're saying. My question, though, with respect to the amount, is the total, the aggregate, is that coming out as you contemplate with your motion of the $5 million that was delegated to your district to D4 to allocate?
Yes.
Okay, I'll support it. Perfect.
Commissioner Tobiah.
He answered my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Smith, and I have a second by Commissioner Zonka has a question.
I just wanted to verify, is there going to be any county costs with that at all?
No.
None, okay. I mean, I know that it was similar to what you just asked, but
There'll be costs, but they're going to come out of the funding from Commissioner Smith's allocation.
Okay, entirely.
Right, and then if you'd add to the motion that I have the authority to sign any necessary paperwork related to this.
Commissioner Smith, is that part of your motion too, sir?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second.
I'll go ahead and second it.
Second by Commissioner Lober. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Is that all, sir?
That's all.
Okay, Vice Chair Zonka.
I have nothing to report, except I wanted the commission to consider, it's something I'd probably put on the agenda because it's something I'll get with the county manager on. I just kind of wanted to get a consensus before I made you guys start to work on it. But I want to come up with a plan to reinstate or reactivate or whatever the roundtable, the builders roundtable, because I think it may solve some of the problems that maybe people are having and coming to see you about in your commission offices, to kind of vet some of the issues they're having, whether it be through permitting, whether it be through, issues with staff, issues with getting stuff returned, issues where we can help them and they can better provide us with what we need to do. But we did this before and it was successful, and then it went by the wayside, and then we switched county managers. And so we had a bit of a transition, but I'd like to reinstate that, to possibly look at doing something like that quarterly. And it's basically where we bring staff in and have staff, I guess, listen to them, listen to the builders and developers in the county. I found it a useful exercise last time, and I think that we both learned a lot from each other, and I'd like to see us do that
Okay, I'm
again.
good. Commissioner Lober, you pushed your button.
Yes, ma'am. Just a quick question. I like the idea, but I'm curious what that costed us before. If it's a trivial cost, I'm happy. If it's tremendous, maybe I'm not.
I think it might save us money in the long run because they're able to take care of it without having to do a lot of extra work with staff and with us.
So it's, I guess maybe for Mr. Abate, it's not something that was prohibitively expensive in your experience?
It was staff time.
Roughly, are we talking just a few hours here and there, or?
Well, the meetings would go for a couple of hours, and I don't know if they were happening, if I remember correctly, quarterly perhaps.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds reasonable.
I don't even think there was a schedule. I think it was kind of like when you guys did, or when the staff decided to do it is when they did it. But it's a couple hours of staff time, and if, again, I think Chairwoman Pritchett brought it up, we usually probably find ways to save money and to expedite things, so it's probably, in the long run, at least a savings for both, not just people submitting plans to the county and having questions. It saves staff time on that end if they've already got the answers. I don't know if we need a motion.
Need a motion, or are we just good with it?
I just wanted to get a consensus to see before we bring something back.
Okay.
I'm all for it.
Because I'd like a schedule, and that, I think, is sort of how we failed last time, is we didn't really have a schedule in place, and I think by doing that, that kind of holds everyone accountable to make sure it's not something that falls by the wayside.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay,
That's
very
it.
good. I don't really have a report. I just want to remind everybody, we've probably had over 4,000 COVID cases since the 1st of January. It might be a little higher than that. And I know we know we have vaccines we're trying to get in. Supply and demand still very difficult. They're trying to vaccinate with all these people, but they only got this many vaccines. So it's going to take some time. And just from my personal household, with having a lot of, well, me and my husband didn't, but I had a lot of family members with it, this thing hurts. So even if you're not in the high-risk category, you don't want to get it, and it lasts a few days. So I'm just going to remind you guys, try to breathe good air, wear the mask if you need to. Try to stay out of heavy populated areas because it is highly contagious. And wash your hands. And if you're sick, please stay home. And if you're sick, don't come into my office. All right, so I just wanted to throw that out to you and remind you of that because it is here and it is really painful and messy, and you don't want to get this junk. All right, you guys have a great evening. God bless.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.